I'm about to show you guys the coolest thing wearing the Infiniti badge. Let's go ahead and open the hood. Yes. If you're seeing orange piping in your engine bay, you are probably looking at an Infiniti M35 hybrid or Q70 hybrid. And I think I've always thought that this is one of the coolest vehicles on the road. You know, not only is it a non-traditional hybrid, back in the day, a few years ago, if you said you wanted a hybrid, people would think you were so uncool and say, you're not even a real car guy. Why would you want a hybrid? But we've come to accept and embrace that hybrid powertrains can be used for performance vehicles. So you've seen the ads of the Infiniti M35 hybrid, the Guinness World Records it held during its time. But I've always wanted to get one of these, so I'm pretty happy. And right now, I'm still at the stage where I'm reading the owner's manual. It's so thick. Not only that, I'm just looking at stuff, just, you know, touching, poking, trying to understand where everything goes and what everything does. So for that reason, I've got an Infiniti M56 over here. I've opened the hood just so that we can see what the engine bay looks like. I'm about to show some key differences. So in the Infiniti M line 2011, actually 2012 and up, had 3 engine options in the United States. You had the 5.6 liter V8, you had the 3.7 liter V6, that is for the M37, and then you also had the 3.5 liter V6 engine used by the hybrid. This is the VQ35 HR engine that was used in the 2009 and 10 M35, for example. So I'm going to go back and forth just to look at it. Being a hybrid, it does have a traditional engine, and I'm trying not to focus on the engine itself. V8 versus V6, it's going to look different. I'm just looking at everything else around the engine bay. So when you're checking out a vehicle, what are some of the things you look for? Well, maybe you're the kind of guy that wants to check your oil, make sure your fluids are good, right? So you have a dipstick here, and likewise, pretty standard engine fare. You've got a dipstick over here as well. And it's pretty simple to read. Everything looks good, all right? So oil is usually one of the first things you look at. Then we can go to other fluids. Think about power steering fluid. We've got this over here, our power steering fluid reservoir. You've got that over there. And you've got something quite like it. You have a reservoir, yes, but if you go around, you'll notice it says EPSF, electronic power steering fluid. We'll talk about that at some point. We'll talk about that. Then, is that about it? Well, we've got a windshield washer reservoir. Same thing over here, pretty standard. And then we've got a coolant reservoir. It's underneath here. I don't know if you can see that, a coolant reservoir. And the hybrid has a coolant reservoir underneath here as well. But there is a bonus. So that is an engine coolant reservoir, but there is yet another reservoir over here. This is for your inverter. So you've got coolant system is a little more involving, and it's a little more involved in this vehicle. All right, let's jump on. What else do we have? Let's look at the battery compartment. Pretty standard. You can see the lettering there. And yeah, you've got a battery tucked underneath there. You've got a fuse box of sorts. You've got the IPDM. You can barely see it from here, but you've probably seen my other videos that reference the IPDM. So you've got that fuse box over here, fuse box over there. You've got fuse box inside the vehicle as well. Over here, let's go ahead and check out the battery compartment. Notice it's pretty plain, isn't it? Just wiring. Lots of orange tubing and, wire and casing. And I can't, I'm not 100% sure what this is. Still reading the manual, as I said. It says left-hand drive. That's something. I'm not saying that there isn't any IPDM or fuse boxes in there, but I can't see any. I see lots of wiring though, so that's something. it's really interesting the amount of technology that went into the hybrids, you know. So let's address the elephant in the room. Where in the world is the battery? The battery is actually in the trunk. So come here, and this compartment over here, turn this 90 degrees counterclockwise or anti-clockwise, and there is your 12-volt battery. The vehicle does have another system altogether. That's your big battery. I can't remember the rating on it, but you have a bigger battery system that does different things. You do have this compartment here is usually a fuse panel of sorts. There you go. There's a fuse box over there. And there you go. Perfect. So when you look at this, it tells you that you've got red and the blue. Looking at it from the top of the vehicle, from the side of the vehicle, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is from the top again. So something is going on over here. Not 100% exactly what the layout is, but one thing I'll tell you is that the trunk on the hybrid is much smaller than the others. Makes sense because you have a battery here. Not only that, you've got other things going on, and the fuel tank is also a little smaller in this one here. Think 20 gallons in those versus 17 gallons, if I remember correctly. But we shall be exploring more of those things later. For now, I just wanted to kind of show what's going on over there. And then let's talk about electronics again. So no fuse box over here like it was over there. Here, in place of this smallish one, you've got a pretty large box. Look at that. And just looking at it, it does say IPDM over here, but let's go ahead and open it. I'm a curious chap. So IPDM is 1, 2. So this one right here, this is your IPDM fuse, 60 amp, pretty big. And then you might have noticed there's a plus over here. This is your positive terminal. So in case you wanted to jump your hybrid, you can come here and connect it, connect your positive terminal over here. And then anywhere else in the car, because pretty much everything else should be earth or ground or negative. So pretty interesting what we've got going on over there. And then what else am I going for? Let's go for this other compartment over here. Brake fluid. Okay, standard fare. You've got master cylinder or brake fluid reservoir. You've got a brake booster over here and tubes going back and forth to the ABS module. All right, so that looks pretty standard. Over here, quite relieved that it does say brake fluid as well. So that's a good start. Let's go ahead and remove this. But well, I think that's about where the similarities end, because now you've got a master cylinder, yes, shaped in an interesting manner. I wonder how far it goes. But instead of your traditional brake booster, you've got this computer here. This is really cool. Let's just take that apart and play with it and understand how things are working over here. You do have an ABS module as well, so that's pretty standard. This is really simple. Look at how simple this layout is over here. So quite a few differences over there. One thing you'll notice about this engine is that it runs a lot of electronic accessories. And let me probably need to turn on my flashlight so that I can explain what's going on. When you look at your standard vehicle, you've got a lot of accessories. The belt accessory system is on the front part of the engine. And so when you look down here, right now, what you're looking at, let me stick my hand in, that right there. Do you see the big pulley right there? The big pulley, this one here, that one, that is your main crank pulley. This one here is your water pump. Then this one here is your AC compressor way down there, okay? And then over here, You've got your alternator, this thing with the grills on it, that's the alternator. Then the other one might be hard to see from here, and it actually runs off a different belt system, a smaller belt, but you've got a power steering pump, and that's where the fluid from this tube from the bottom of the reservoir goes all the way to the bottom to your power steering pump. So that's pretty standard, right? That makes sense. You have an accessory system, and it depends on the engine running for your accessories to run. But remember, this is a hybrid, and you'll watch the other videos that I've got. I show you at different times the engine actually shuts off. So you still need the ability to operate all these things, all these accessories, belt-driven accessories. They need to be operational even when the engine is not running. So one way to do it is no belt accessories. Decouple them from the engine. And that's what happens over here. Look down here. This looks like an M35 engine, but no belt accessories at all. Nothing. You have no belts going anywhere. There's a lot of tubing, yes. And if you peek down there, you'll be able to see the pulley, the crank pulley right there. Can you see it down there? Just hanging out by itself, crank pulley. All right, there you go. Just take my word for it. There is a crank pulley down there, just doing its own thing, harmonic balancer. It needs to be able to, dampen vibrations and do all those other things that crank pulleys do, but everything else is off to the side. So for example, let's look at this. I'm trying to catch this. Do you see that box down there? Yes, that is your electric water pump. It's a water pump, but it runs off electronic controls. So it runs even when that engine is down. It's still circulating coolant, because coolant is important not only for heating the inside the cabin, but your inverter also gets hot. So you have, your coolant system needs to be able to circulate and keep that stuff cool. And so that's why you've got this. I don't 100% know where the connections are, where they meet and all that, but I know that if you've got a reservoir, that means you need to circulate it somewhere. You do have a closed system somewhere. So that's it for the coolant system. The second thing is the power steering. I showed you guys this, and I've been kind of dancing around this part right here. It looks like an ABS module, doesn't it? But then it's got these banjo bolts as well. This is your power steering pump. And an ABS module. An ABS module is pretty much a pump, you know that, right? So this is where your power steering comes from. So that even when your engine is not running, when you have no belts or anything like that, you still have some sort of power steering assist. So that is pretty cool. You've got that feature going on. Then let's go for the other one is the AC compressor down there. So you have the tubes coming in just like normal, right? Going down there, down to the bottom. But your AC compressor, I could also see that orange tubing going to the bottom, because your AC compressor is also, it might be bolted onto the engine, but it is electronically controlled. That is pretty cool. There is so much going on with this vehicle right now. And then you'll notice that I haven't talked about your alternator, because it doesn't really have an alternator. When you have an inverter, no need for an alternator, right? Oh, there you go. That is like an oil cooler. So, and talking about accessories, this one, we can't really see it on that engine, but the engine does have a starter, and I've made a video talking about starters. Did I post the starter replacement? Can't remember, but we've talked about starters, right? You know what a starter looks like. This engine does not use a standard starter. It uses the electric motor, and it goes and it powers what would be a torque converter. It's actually just a clutch. When it wants your engine to start, it just engages the clutch, turns your engine, and there you go. So the power management is a little interesting here. No starter and no alternator, right? It's got its own way, and I need to sit down and really understand, where does the 12-volt battery start? Where does it, because if that dies, your car's not starting. So that's an interesting thing. And where exactly does the big battery, the hybrid battery, take over? The lithium ion battery, when does it take over and start driving? So it's pretty interesting. As a result of removing a lot of these accessories and getting smaller units to do pretty much the same thing. So maybe this one here, it's actually maybe twice as large as a standard pump, but removing accessories from the engine, I think it's pretty cool. I think it does something for this engine. Does not vibrate as badly as I feel like the M35s from 2009 and 10 do. So removing all those accessories, leaving the engine being independently balanced, does help a little bit, until you have no drag from all these accessories. When you're running electrical stuff, everything electric, no drag on the engine. So enables the engine to be an even better performer, you know. So I think I'm really excited to have this in my possession, and I'm not promising that I'm going to take this one apart, but I'm going to be learning as much as I can, just soaking it in and sharing everything I can. And I hope you guys enjoy the journey, as I'll be flooding your your phones, your computers, your TVs with a lot of hybrid content.